Hello everyone, my name is Silvia, and today I will be talking about controversies around birth control and family planning. More specifically, I will discuss how this is an issue for women and how it affects women in both the United States and India. This will include the resources that these women have, their rights, the equality in both countries, and overall the trends that take place in both countries will also be compared. To begin, some background information about birth control and family planning is that they both go hand in hand. In order to plan when to have children or not have children, birth control and other forms of contraceptives may be used to reduce the probability of getting pregnant, or they may not be used when wanting to increase the chance of getting pregnant and either starting or continuing to grow one's family. Birth control is the use of medicines, devices, or surgery to prevent pregnancy, and there are many different types. For example, there are barrier methods, such as male and female condoms being the most common, as well as spermicide, which is a substance in the form of a jelly, cream, or foam that kills sperm cells when they come into contact. Or by using a contraceptive sponge that when placed in the vagina, it covers the cervix, while also containing spermicide to kill sperm cells if by any chance they were released into the vagina. There is also something called a diaphragm and cervical cap that, similar to the sponge, is inserted into the vagina, covering the cervix, and may also be used with spermicide. There are also hormonal methods of contraception, such as the pill, which is taken daily, a patch that is replaced weekly, or a vaginal ring that is inserted in the vagina and replaced every 3 weeks to account for that 1 week of menstruation in a woman's body. There is also an injection offered that women may opt to receive every 3 weeks in their provider's office, or for an alternative that is more long-term, they may get an implant, which is a thin rod placed under a woman's upper arm that can last up to 4 years, also done in the physician's office. One of the more long-acting reversible contraceptives is an intrauterine device, or IUD, which is inserted into the uterus that can protect against pregnancy from 3 to 10 years. Two sterilization methods or surgeries include a tubal ligation, which is performed on women where their fallopian tubes are either tied, cut, or blocked to prevent the release of eggs or to prevent from sperm traveling to meet the egg in the fallopian tube. Some of you may have heard of some women getting their tubes tied, which is what this refers to. There is also a vasectomy, which is a surgery performed on men, where their sperm supply is cut off, therefore preventing this man from getting a woman pregnant. There are also more natural forms of prevention, such as a woman tracking her ovulation and fertility cycle that will allow her to decide if she wants to have sex on a particular day when she is ovulating, increasing her chances of getting pregnant or not. Or for women who are breastfeeding, they may breastfeed for 6 months and have no menstruation during those 6 months. Lastly, there is withdrawal, more commonly known as the pull-out method. If in any case none of these methods were used or affected, as maybe the condom broke in the middle of intercourse as an example, there are also forms of emergency contraceptives available. These include having a provider insert a copper IUD into the woman's vagina within 120 hours of unprotected sex, or taking a pill, such as a Plan B pill, that can be taken within 72 hours after unprotected sex. The earlier it is taken, the better effect it will have of preventing pregnancy. The two countries that I will focus on for this topic are the United States and India. The universal reproductive age for women is ages 15 to 49 years old. In 2018, the United States consisted of 72.7 million women of ages 15 to 49. 46 million of these women were sexually active but not seeking pregnancy. With the different types of contraceptive methods available in the United States, only 65% of these women were using at least one form of contraception. Although there are many contraceptive methods available for women in the United States, there are some minor limitations that may be placed on some families. For example, among the 46 million of sexually active women, 81% of them have no insurance and still use contraceptives. 87% had coverage from medical aid, and 90% had coverage from private health insurance companies. In addition, from women below the federal poverty level, 86% of them used one form of contraception, as well as 91% of women with a much higher income. Overall, contraceptive use seems to be lower with an 83% among women ages 15 to 24 and higher with the 91% among women ages 25 through 34. Although there are some limitations, the rates of contraceptive use in the United States seem to be in really great shape based on the statistics. In the United States, there has been more awareness of the use of birth control and contraceptives that have caused a decline in pregnancy, especially in recent years. Next, we will discuss the use of contraceptives and its role in family planning among Indian women and families. India was one of the first countries in the world to launch a family planning program to help women gain access to birth control. As a matter of fact, a clause in one of the United States policies demanded that India speed its implementation of birth control if the country wanted food aid. India was very persistent in lowering the population, as described in the article Family Planning, the Controversial Contraceptives, found on pubmed.gov. In India, over 139 million women now use a modern method of contraceptive. From 2015 to 2020, the use of contraception in India has increased from 47.8% to 56.5%, which hopefully continues as an increasing trend. One of the most common methods of contraception used worldwide is female sterilization, which also happens to be the most common method used in India. Although the idea is to prevent unintended pregnancies, it is also important that women are given rights to make decisions about their bodies and which contraceptive method they choose to use, as it aligns with gender equality. In 2015, the introduction of 3 new contraceptive methods, such as injections and pills, helped turn away from the female sterilization method. Although India has been adamant about increasing contraceptive use to prevent pregnancy, there are still plenty of challenges. For instance, there are women that belong to scheduled castes and tribes in remote parts of India where there is a disparity in equitable access to healthcare, and especially contraception. India has designated groups of people who are also some of the most disadvantaged due to their lack of healthcare services and, specifically to this, lack of contraceptive use. The fertility rate for scheduled tribes is 3.12, followed by 2.92 for scheduled castes, 2.75 for other backward class, and 2.35 for other social groups. In addition, 48% of women from scheduled tribes use contraceptives, as well as 54% of other backward class and 55% of scheduled castes, keeping them at a very high probability of an unintended pregnancy. Unfortunately, too, out of the percentages that use contraceptives, the most common one used is female sterilization, which might not even be the woman's first choice, due to gender inequality and lack of rights, or the lack of knowledge and even access to other forms of contraceptive methods. Unfortunately, this has been the reality in India and many other countries in the world. While exploring the demographics of both the United States and India, there were many cultural similarities and differences that were found among women in both countries. For example, one of the socio-cultural factors that make the use of birth control a problem is the financial factor. This was common in both countries, but more so in India. Many women may be aware and have access to these resources. However, if they cannot afford them, then the information seems almost useless and out of reach. In the United States, women are fortunate enough to have access to Planned Parenthood, for example, or Medicaid, where they may receive guidance, advice, and financial aid to healthcare information and resources. More specifically, to access the use of contraceptives to protect themselves against getting pregnant unintentionally. In addition, there are programs in school such as health and sexual education classes. Not to mention the use of online technology that many of us today who might have a doubt or question about a specific health issue, or really anything for that matter, we are fortunate enough and we can just quickly do a Google search. In addition, although India was enforcing the use of birth control, there are areas in India where 65% of girls are still getting married before the age of 18. Here, age becomes another factor, as these girls are now engaging in sexual activity at a younger age, where they may or may not be educated, but where they also run a higher risk of becoming pregnant. Add to that the lack of contraceptive use in between pregnancies, that then ties in the financial factor once again, as the families are growing and so are their needs, especially for food, clothes, and a home for the families. Another similarity found between both countries is that there is a need for more male involvement in family planning. A lot of the responsibility tends to fall on women because it is their body, but it is also crucial to recognize that men may also participate in contraceptive use, simply by starting with the condom. Whether that is done in the United States or in India, that would be a start in the right direction for both countries. There are many underlying factors that surround the use of contraceptives in family planning. As mentioned in the previous slide, the need for more male involvement in family planning is crucial, as they too are participants and contribute to pregnancy, whether it is unintentional or not. Not to mention, there are contraceptive methods that are tailored for men, such as male condoms, or for a more permanent method of vasectomy, which also allows males to have some control over the situation, especially if they are not planning for a pregnancy with their female partner. However, that is not to say that women do not hold a great responsibility in preventing pregnancy, because they undoubtedly do.
Once again, especially if it is not planned for at that point in the lives of both the male and the female. As mentioned before, so many women may not use contraceptives because they simply are not aware of them, which emphasizes the great need for more education directed towards these women. And this is true for both women and even men. This can start early on for both young boys, but especially young women, as they should take preventative measures regarding their body that men should not have any control over. There is a difference between men having control over the situation and taking responsibility, in comparison to having control over a woman's body and the decisions she chooses to make, which should not be the case for a healthy family plan. A factor that plays a role in deterring a percentage of women from using at least one method of contraception in India specifically is education. More education, whether that refers to general education such as acquiring math or literacy skills, is definitely a need. As expressed in the article Family Planning in India, published on PubMed Central, improving literacy and economic conditions for individuals lowers birth rates, while low fertility in turn plays a positive role in economic growth. There is undoubtedly a need for more education about the use of contraceptives in certain parts of India when compared to the education that is present in the United States. This is especially important for those women that are difficult to reach, such as those in the specific social groups, like the scheduled castes and tribes that I mentioned earlier, for example. Although there is awareness that has been playing an influence in India, there is still a percentage of women that need to be reached and catered to with knowledge on how to take adequate care of themselves and their needs. And if these women are already mothers or married, that does not mean that they should disregard family planning. If anything, I would argue that it should in fact be the opposite. If a woman is already a mother, it is extra important that she receives guidance going forward, especially because pregnancy and giving birth can have great implications on a woman's health. A woman may become malnourished as her body is overworking, and she may hardly be able to take care of herself as she now has multiple children to take care of, as well as any other responsibilities which are typically around the household for women. Not only is this beneficial for mothers, their children, and families overall, but also to the society. Access to contraceptives contributes to society by delaying, spacing, and limiting pregnancies, which in turn lowers healthcare costs and ensures that more girls complete their education rather than becoming mothers right away. This also ensures that these educated women enter the workforce, which also contributes to achieving gender equality. Not only is this all beneficial in empowering women with knowledge and the ability to control their bodies and the reproductive choices that they choose to make, but ultimately it results in a reduction of poverty and inequalities that may easily present themselves among a society. The article from PubMed states that research shows that adequate attention to family planning in countries with high birth rates can not only reduce poverty and hunger, but also avert 32% of maternal and nearly 10% of childhood deaths. There would also be additional significant contributions to women's empowerment, access to education, and long-term environmental sustainability.
Over time, there has been more awareness about the use of birth control and contraceptives that allow for more intentional family planning rather than accidental. When it comes to being pregnant and childbirth, there are many complications that may arise. One of the factors that contributes to these complications is age, for example. If a young girl becomes pregnant, not only is the health of the fetus at risk, but so is hers. Similarly, if an older woman, especially a woman with underlying health complications, becomes pregnant, her life may be at risk as well. Not to mention the physical, emotional, and social effects that come along with pregnancy and childbirth. The body completely changes internally and externally, affecting a woman's social and emotional state, as she no longer is a single person and now has to worry about her family as well as herself. A significant factor that will always come into play is the financial impact that may increase poverty levels, prevent women from receiving an education as they have to now take care of families and maybe even work in order to take care of the family. It all depends on the situation of each particular family. There is so much more to pregnancy, which is why the use of contraceptives seems so simple, but it is so important in preventing a cascading effect of difficulties for certain families, and especially women that are sexually active and do not plan to get pregnant. All of these factors go hand in hand with the geographic location of the women and the couples and the families, as well as the resources that are offered to them and the education that they may receive or may not receive. Family planning programs impact women's health by providing universal access to sexual and reproductive health care services and counseling information, which can make all the difference in the world for both men and especially women, as well as the children that are caught in the middle of it all. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you guys also were able to gain a little bit more insight and knowledge about this prevalent issue in the United States, but also in all over the world. And I hope you guys are able to apply these to your lives or to give advice to someone in the future, because that will just continue to raise awareness about the controversies around birth control and family planning that unfortunately a lot of other countries do not have access to, and we are fortunate enough to receive an education on these things and apply them to our lives. So once again, thank you so much.